Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon and I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to vlog 289, Writer's Block. This vlog on Writer's Block is paired with our last vlog on burnout. Both these words and phrases were used by a student in my office, very distressed student, to explain what was going wrong in her PhD candidature. So what we're going to do today is we're going to explore the very nature of writer's block and how to handle and fix it. But can I say, this is not an experiential vlog for me. I have never, touch everything, I have never experienced writer's block. Writing for me really is like a tap. I turn the tap on, I write, I turn the tap off and I stop. And I'm very well aware that that is remarkable and I'm incredibly lucky, but also it is a necessity of working in contemporary academic life. I haven't had research time or a research day for about 15 years. So if I waited for, a research block to write, I would be waiting till hell freezes over. So I haven't got the capacity within the job that I do in higher education to have a block of writing. And if I lose the time that I create, so I get up at 2 in the morning and I create my block outside of the working environment. So if I let that 2 a.m. to the 4:15 a.m. block pass me by, go, oh, I can't really write, that time is never coming back again. Therefore, for me, I had to research this topic. That was great. There was no experiential lens I could deploy, but the research has been incredibly interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate a very short and sharp vlog this week. So I'm going to put in place some of the definitions that encircle writer's block, and then I'm going to provide 10 very quick solutions that you can use today, that you can activate today to move you beyond this issue. So therefore, let's activate firstly the very tight definitions of writer's block. And there are 2 of them that dominate the literature. The first definition is temporal, so time passes without writing. The second one is measured by actions and tasks. So time is passing without writing productively. So you may be doing some writing, but it's not really on task. Now, most of the research on writer's block emerged through the 1970s and the 1980s. And it's got particular characteristics. It's locked into trying to understand the writer's processes, understanding the writing process and how to improve it. So the causes that were reported from this crucial period, the 1970s and the 1980s, perhaps obviously focused on a writer's lack of inspiration, a writer's lack of motivation. And the second rationale I found, to be frank, more convincing and more understandable, because something happens in the context of the writer-researcher. So illness to oneself or a family member, depression, end of a serious relationship, economic problems, homelessness and so forth. So your life falls apart, and needless to say, and not surprisingly, writing doesn't really happen when you're homeless. That makes a lot of sense to me. But then the debate started to pick up again in the 2010s, and there was an interesting article in Psychology Today in 2012 that confirmed that writer's block emerges particularly when a writer is starting a new project and then has some difficulty starting, but then also might have difficulty sustaining or sticking with the writing. So there are 2 problems. Someone doesn't really start, and then when they start, they can't really finish. They're the 2 areas or problems. But I do note the crucial intervention by Susan Reynolds in 2015. And she confirmed, and this is her language, not mine, that writer's block is a myth, and actually not a psychological condition at all. But she argued, and I absolutely agree with her, that it might not be a psychological condition, but writing is incredibly difficult. It activates multiple mental processes that require attributes that don't nestle well with the rest of our life. So to be a good writer creates a lot of discomfort in the rest of your life. Because if you think about it, what does writing involve, right? Well, we have to experiment, we have to take risks, we have to manage uncertainty, we have to be vulnerable, and also, of course, we fail a lot. And our culture is very frequently frightened of failure. And if you write, you fail. So therefore, while writer's block may not be a psychological condition, it is a recognition, that phrase I think, it's a proxy as we talked about, it is a recognition that writing is difficult, and that is accurate. Therefore, let's use the rest of this vlog to render that difficulty more meaningful and break it up a little bit so we can manage it, okay? So I want real, free, pardon me, real, free, quick and easy strategies in place to make your writing more fluid. And I want writing to be a part of your life rather than destroying your life. So let's do it. Number one, remember that few academics have been taught how to write. Few academics have been taught how to write. So that means we can't teach you. Okay, so we need to remember that almost all academics have an undergraduate degree and maybe a master's and maybe a PhD in a discipline. So those qualifications may be physics or mathematics or biology or history or geography or midwifery. Now you'll notice all those very important disciplines, none of those qualifications are actually in writing. So there are a series of assumptions that are involved when a student enrolls in a PhD, and there's this weird sort of what I would call the transmission mode of communication, to be frank. But when a student enrolls in a PhD, there's sort of an assumption that the expertise of the supervisor in writing sort of pours into the student. So just during the candidature, the expertise in writing that the supervisor has sort of magically enters the student's body. Yeah, okay. So Lawrence Oliver, not Olivia, Lawrence Oliver confirmed that, quote, students receive little or no advice on how to generate ideas or explore their thoughts, and they usually must proceed through the writing process without guidance or corrective feedback from the teacher, end of quote. Crucial. So as you can see, this is not about you. Once more, we've individualised the problem. This actually isn't about you. This is about how our universities are organised and how teaching and learning in our universities is activated. So what you can see what's happening here. Writing is not taught overtly or clearly. And you're stressed because you're endlessly worried that you're doing it wrong, when nobody's actually taught you what doing writing right actually looks like. But you also need to know there is actually no singular template about what is good or excellent academic writing. There's no template, there's no series of rules, there is actually, to be frank, no rubric. So your confusions and your worries about writing are normal, are rational. Now, you have to explore, and this is the important bit here, is your writer's block actually a proxy for something else? Is it about your expectations management? Now, if it's not actually about writer's block, it's about expectation management, then please talk with your supervisor or advisor and state, you know what, can we have our next meeting on writing? Whatever your discipline, can we have a meeting on writing and ask your supervisors to talk about overtly how they write and how they learned to write. Now trust me, they would appreciate that conversation. They would find that quite meta. They'd find that quite important for themselves. And you will be helped, I think, if we speak the words about the behaviour and the methods of writing in particular disciplines. 2, we learn to write by writing. The students that always worry me they worry me a lot, and they're the ones that particularly get trapped in this writer's block thing, are the perfectionists, right? They want their sentences to spring from their keyboards with perfection. They want to write the perfect sentence first time. Now, colleagues, this is the pathway to madness. The best writers are the best editors. Full stop. My first drafts are rubbish. Absolute rubbish. My 10th drafts are absolute rubbish. But I'm a good writer. And the reason I'm a good writer is because I'm a good editor. I draft well. So the reason I think I've never had writer's block, I think, is that I have absolutely no judgment on my first draft. I go, it's rubbish, I'm cool with that. Let's get in that rubbish and have a bit of a play with it, right? So I don't judge the first draft. I don't judge my 10th draft. I only judge my last draft. So I know that, I'm going to slam down ideas, no judgment here, and the great writing is going to come through the process of great drafting. And drafting and editing are very, very different from writing. They're different skills. So just write. We learn to write by writing. Emotionally start to disconnect yourself from those early drafts. Get the ideas down, hashtag no judgment. No writing, no writing. No writing is perfect. Aim for progress, movement, momentum, not perfection. 3. Always start writing for yourself. There's a particularly strong suite of research, and I'm very convinced by this, that's aligned with the work of Phyllis Kostenbaum, that showed that her fear of writing was directly aligned to the fear of her teacher's feedback. So the fear is not in the writing, the fear comes from the feedback. Think about if that's you. Now, I understand that your supervisor may frighten you. I understand that. Or that indeed you respect them so much that their views are incredibly important to you. I'm only laughing because I'm thinking about how my students treat me. And it's like, what do you got to say now? So, my relationship with my students is very much on the same level. So the idea that they respect me so much. I'm laughing. Alyssa, I'm thinking of you. So always remember that the supervisor feedback, that's great, that's fine, but that's a different situation. When you are writing, please always make sure that the act of writing is for yourself first. You are your first audience. Yes, you're going to write for other audiences. Most importantly, your examiners. But they're not your first audience. They're your last audience. Start writing for yourself. Hashtag no judgment. So while you can welcome feedback, absolutely, you write for yourself first, and then you incorporate the views of others if they are appropriate. 4, think about how you were taught writing at school, realise it was a long time ago, and reorganise your strategies and behaviours. Let's all think about school. Very unpleasant series of memories for me. I was a goth. Goths did it hard at school. But think about your experience at school and how you were taught writing. It was pretty poor, eh? And look, most of us were taught writing in terms of rules and restrictions. The do's and don'ts, grammar, right? That's how we were taught writing. Attraction. Now, many academic genres still sort of attempt to reinforce rules like this, but the problem is students get so bothered about these rules that they get sort of tangled up in them, like sort of a net, and they just can't get out of the rules. Now, some of the best writers I've ever known have been physicists. And the reason I'm saying that is the notion all the scientists don't write well. That is nonsense. People often talk about the elegance of science. And some of the most elegant writers I've ever seen have been physicists. And I know about this because I married one of them. So let's think about elegant writing and let's think about these supposed rules of writing. Well, you know what? What I want you to do firstly is stretch into the rules. Stretch into the rules. And when you stretch into them, you then start to stretch the rules themselves. Then what I need you to do is transcend the rules. So when you can move beyond the rules, you can then transform them. Now, the best writers I know, and I know some of the best academic writers on this planet, and it is a pleasure to know you, colleagues, but they are not too bothered by rules because they don't allow themselves to be blocked or frozen by rules they were taught when they were 9. Okay? So think about yourself at 9 or 10 and 11. Think about how many things you learnt when you were 9, 10 and 11 that were absolutely and completely wrong. So transcend the way you were taught and the rules you were taught. 5. Write down ideas when you have them. Right. Now, the best way to manage writer's block is to just simply lock down an idea or a word or a phrase when you have it, right? So, and just throw that into a Word document. So, oh, that was an idea, throw it down, 3 words, bang, do that. So yes, you can carry a notebook around with you. A lot of people do that. You've got your phone, use the note functions on that. And just continually, when you have an idea, write down a word, write down a phrase, write down something. Now, that means, and I do this all the time, that means when I start a new writing project, I open up the file and there's already 5 or 10 headings or ideas ready for me to start writing. So I never start an article without a few words and phrases to scaffold the writing that I'm doing. And so what I do, to be frank with you, is I'm doing this right now, so that's why I can talk about it. I'm finishing off a book in this case, finishing off a book, but every morning as I'm finishing that off, I have another file open for the next article I'm about to start on Monday. And so when I get an idea while I'm doing this, finishing book, I go, oh, 3 words in here, phrase. And so when I finish this on Monday morning, when I open that next file to start the article, I have 15 ideas ready to write up already. So that means you're never starting with the blank screen, you're never starting with a blank piece of paper. So start to gather these ideas and be really comfortable and relaxed with it. When you're walking the dog, when you're going for a walk, you're at the gym, when you're shopping for groceries, when you're in the queue in a post office. That's where I get some of my best ideas. I'm in the queue, I'm not terribly interested in all the objects around me that they're trying to sell me, and I go, oh, and I go on the phone, boom, come home, write it up. So this means you start to move these ideas into chapters and into articles, and then you can start to work them up in a really organic way into writing. 6, big one. Reorganise your relationship between reading and writing. Now, sometimes for some students, writing is difficult because you legitimately don't have any content to write. So when people are saying writer's block, it is a proxy for something else, and it's a proxy for you haven't read enough. Okay? So I've got writer's block. No, you've actually just got nothing to say. Okay? And the way we test this, we test if your problem is not actually writing, it's reading, is what I want you to do is, I'm going to give you a task. Go away and read 5 articles on your thesis or on your area of research. Go away and read, don't think about writing, read 5 articles and write notes. Then when you've done that, open those notes and write some prose for me. Now, if you can write up those notes reasonably effectively into prose for your thesis or just a couple of pages, then your problem is not writing. Your problem is reading, and you need to read more. Okay, 7. My usual one, feel the fear and do it anyway. Now, there's so much attention at the moment And students repeat it to me on, writer's block. Oh, I've got writer's block, I've got writer's block. And what writer's block actually is, by what they're trying to express, I think, is a fear of writing. But it's not really a fear of writing, it's a fear of the response to writing. So fear of being judged, fear of being criticised, fear of being rejected, and of course the great fear of reader or referee too. They are mongrels, I agree with you. Now remember, no one reads your first draft but you. You are your first best audience. You are the most important person here. So therefore, there's nothing to fear, actually. You are producing something amazing. You are writing. You are adding to the world. So therefore, that's something to be incredibly proud of and not to fear. And if it's the very act of writing that's worrying you, the best technique I know, and I've used this hundreds of times with students and colleagues around the world, if the very act of writing is frightening you, this is how you fix it. So open up the sound recorder on your phone and talk your ideas to your phone. So it's no pressure, no blank screen, no writing, you're just talking. So what am I trying to do in this thesis? What the hell am I trying to do in this thesis? What am I trying to do in this chapter? And speak the words. Now, when you speak words, what then happens is you put your headphones on, you listen to that sound file back, and you simply transcribe what you're hearing. Now, what you've then done is you've then, like the other system I talked about, you've listed some ideas. So here's some phrases, here's some ideas. You've no longer got a blank screen, and suddenly, simply from transcribing verbal cues, sonic media, you're able to render it visual media, that is writing. So if this seems a bit weird, like people look at you like who are you talking to, it's like, pretend you're talking to me. So what are you doing? What's your thesis on? Come on, what's your thesis on? Or pretend you're talking to your supervisor. So what are you trying to get across in this chapter? Speak those words. 8, important one. Trial different modes of writing. So don't be completely overwhelmed by the seemingly high expectations of academic writing. There's all sorts of different modes of writing that can scaffold you into academic writing. So do trial some academic journalism, and here's some options. Online Opinions, a great place to publish. The Southern Review is a great place to publish. Australia Quarterly, and they're just 3 examples from Australia. So they take some interesting academic ideas for a wider audience, right? But start to gain confidence in these different modes of writing, and know that no one in writing goes from 0 to hero. We learn to write by writing. So you don't move from suddenly enrolling in a PhD to be able to produce chapters that are worthy of examination. That does not happen. So take the time. Write the couple of thousand or 3,000 words on something that's tethered to but adjacent to your thesis, and therefore use these new modes of writing, some of which may be journalistic, to test and transform your writing and your confidence with it. And the weirdest thing is, I picked this strategy up from the literature. It is available in the literature. And then, bizarrely, and my Google Scholar is available for you to review. So I was actually checking what's going on with my Google Scholar at the moment. Very interesting. And I went right back to, I did my research master's degree and my PhD when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And I saw, and I'd forgotten, I'm so old, I've forgotten, that my first 5 articles had nothing to do, were not from my research master's degree or my PhD. I made a decision, as I was moving from very traditional history to cultural studies, to start to experiment with different modes of writing. And so I would pick very interesting, quirky topics and write that up into a refereed article in a new field. So if you go to my Google Scholar, you can see there's the first 5 articles. Nothing to do with my early research, because I was experimenting in form, not content. And I'm the writer I am today because of those experiments I did in 1991, 2 and 3. So always remember that writing, even academic writing, is diverse. It's not one thing. Sometimes the advice in this area is, oh look, try free writing. You know, free man, bit free bird, you know, play some Skinner, man, bit free bird. But you know, if you want to go free bird and do some free writing, man, you go do that. But for me, it's about writing something. Write something and start to think about the form. Be reflexive on the how of writing, and that'll help you with the why and the what. 9. Be conscious in creating your writing environment. Now, we've done a whole vlog on organising your life to write, and part of that is about context. Now, interestingly, for the research I did this week, some of the research discussed the importance of, you know, changing scenery. So if you can't write well in one location, go to a coffee shop and it'll free you up, girlfriend. And look, that might be the case. That might be the case, and try that if it works. For me, the exact opposite works. For me to make writing work, I need a pattern. Okay, I need a space where my brain and my body click in and realise, team, it is writing time. Okay, so my whole office upstairs, which you've seen, some vlogs have been recorded up there, the whole thing is geared as a reading, writing office. Okay, that's what it's organised for. So I wake up at 2 in the morning, put up the computer head of the laptop, here's my notes, and I start. So not 20 seconds to do anything else, bang, bang, off we go, right? Because that space I know is a writing space. Now my office at work, which again we've done some vlogs in, that's a consulting office. I do emails, I see students, I run meetings in that office. I never write there. So my brain goes, right, well, this is a different space, I'm seeing students, professional space here, not research, not writing. So recognise the importance of not only understanding a context, but constructing a context, constructing an environment to write. And this place will therefore reduce your distractions, reduce your disturbances. There's no social media or internet. You know this is a writing space. 10. Do not write to a deadline. Now, binge writing is always a mistake. Yes, people say, I write best under pressure. I'll do it all night, I'll write my thesis 3 nights in a row. You know those people? Yeah. So they're the people that also, of course, magically, surprise, surprise, suffer from writer's block. Because you've put, what I call binge writing, you've put such incredible pressure on yourself to do this writing, and of course invariably it's poor because good writing is good drafting, so you haven't got the time to draft, so it's pretty mediocre. And of course then you're exhausted, you feel dreadful, and you become gun shy for next time. It's like, it's time to binge again, let's do another all-nighter, and you remember what happened last time. So you can see the cycle is problematic. Little and often is the way to live in so many parts of your life, including writing. Now, no one can do a 10-hour slog of writing, and you know what? You shouldn't have to. The idea that you've got yourself into that corner, it's like, I have to write this now, it's due tomorrow. Oh no. The idea that you've got yourself into that corner, that's the problem. That's not writer's block. That's about you being unable to manage time and tasks. So what I need you to do is little and often. Write in spurts and know that everyone has a dreadful first draft, and great writing is, yes, great editing. So I just wanted to finish off the vlog this week with a man, and an incredibly inspirational man through my entire life actually, but particularly I think in the last year. And of course I'm talking about Leonard Cohen. I love him. I love him. Now, Leonard Cohen was not only a remarkable writer, but what made and makes the late great Leonard Cohen so important is he reflected on the process of writing. And of course that's what great writers are. They not only write, but they're such a good writer that they can step out of themselves and explain what they do. Okay, so Leonard described writing as, quote, hard work. But he continued, quote, but why shouldn't my work be hard? Almost everybody's work is hard. One is distracted by this notion that there's such a thing as inspiration, that it comes fast and easy. and some people may be graced by that style. I'm not. End of quote. And look, even more amazingly, and this is the statement that I summon in myself every morning as I walk from my bedroom to my writing office. Quote, writing begins with an appetite to discover my self-respect, to redeem the day, so the day does not go down in debt. It begins with that kind of appetite. An appetite to discover my self-respect. This statement is perhaps the best solution to writer's block that I can give you today. Writing is an appetite. Writing is about discovery. Writing is about self-respect. So, whenever you feel yourself feeling the fear, or feeling panic, or feeling blockage, remember the privilege of writing, because through writing, every day we discover our self-respect. You are adding something to the world that didn't exist before you wrote it. I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.